Echo TV is a co-production of Echo, Minnesota in collaboration with health, safety, emergency, and civic agencies and partners and Twin Cities Public Television. Echo provides multicultural programming and services to keep you healthy, safe, engaged, and ready.
Hello and welcome to Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, Executive Director for Echo. Echo stands for Emergency Community Health and Outreach. We provide educational information on health, safety, emergency, and civic information in as many as 12 different languages. The program this time is about going to court in Minnesota. We have two guests to talk more about the subject, but first, please watch this.
Minnesota's government has three parts, or branches. Each branch works with laws. People in the legislative branch make laws. People in the executive branch enforce laws so everyone follows them. People in the judicial branch, the courts, work independently to apply the laws fairly, one case at a time. Judges run the courtrooms. Sometimes courts also have juries. They help decide the facts. Courts do not favor one side or the other. Instead, courts are like a good referee. They apply the laws equally and fairly to everyone. In other countries, this may not be true. But in this country, it's very important for courts to be neutral. There are many reasons to go to court. A traffic ticket, problems with a neighbor, family issues, or business conflicts. There are two kinds of court cases, civil and criminal. In criminal cases, the government accuses someone, a defendant, of a crime. A government attorney gives evidence of the crime. The defendant can also give evidence and argue the case. The court listens to both sides. If the court decides that the defendant broke the law, the judge decides the consequences. Criminal court is for any crime, speeding tickets, robbery, and even murder. In civil cases, one person or group, called a party, says that another party harmed them. Here, the court's job is to solve legal problems. At the end of the case, courts often order one party to pay money to the other party. Civil cases can be about housing, car accidents, or even business conflicts. If you have to go to court, do not be afraid. Remember, the court's job is to listen and then apply the law fairly. If you are a defendant in a criminal case, you have the right to work with an attorney. Attorneys are experts in the law and the court. They also can speak to the judge for you. Their job is to help you understand your rights and give you advice based on the law and the facts. But you have to help. Tell your attorney all the facts. Listen to your attorney and ask questions so you can get good advice. If you cannot afford an attorney in a criminal case, ask the court to provide one for you. These criminal case attorneys are called public defenders. In civil cases, there are no public defenders. So if you want an attorney in a civil case, you have to find and usually pay for one on your own. If you don't understand what's going on, ask for help. Court employees can answer your questions about how the court works. If you have a disability, you can also ask the court for help. Ask as soon as you can before you go to court so the court can get ready. When you're in the courtroom for a hearing or trial, the court must have an interpreter who speaks your language. Ask the court for an interpreter before you go so the court can get ready. Only special court interpreters work in the courtroom. These interpreters work for the court, not for you. Interpreters repeat what people say so everyone understands. But if you don't understand, tell the judge, "I don't understand." Interpreters aren't attorneys. They don't give legal advice. You don't have to use an attorney. The court will not discriminate against you because of your race, religion, language, gender, or culture. Never try to bribe judges or court employees. Remember, courts are fair and neutral. Always tell the truth. It's a crime to lie in court. If you don't know the answer to the question, just say, "I don't know." If you can't remember, say, "I can't remember." Minnesota courts help solve legal problems. They apply the law to protect people and property. They help keep our communities fair and safe. If you're going to court, get prepared. Know what to expect before you go. Be honest and respectful, and ask for help if you need it.
Welcome back. You're watching Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, Executive Director for Echo. This program is about going to court in Minnesota. And joining us to talk about this subject are two wonderful guests. We have Judge Mary Vasily here. She's the 4th Judicial District Judge. And we also have Judge Tanya Bransford with us, who is also a member of the 4th Judicial District Judge. Welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for being on Echo.
Oh, thanks for having us, Lily.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. This is an interesting subject because people, I think, are afraid to go to court sometimes. It can be overwhelming. A lot to know, a lot to get ready for in advance. It might even feel a little scary. So kind of the purpose of this program is to let folks know that it's not so scary, and if you're prepared, it can actually be a nice legal and fair process for all. Tell us first a little bit about yourself. Tell us first, Judge, a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, actually, I was first a registered nurse for a time, and then I went to law school. After law school, I practiced for 27 years at a private law firm, practicing in the area of civil trial law. And then just 2 years ago, I was appointed to be a district court judge. And during that 2-year time, I have served in the capacity of a criminal law judge, and then currently I'm assigned in the family court, where we hear exclusively divorce cases, custody cases, and other cases involving paternity, family matters generally.
So long and varied history in the legal system.
Yes.
Judge, how about you?
Well, I was appointed to be a judge back in 1994, so I've been a judge in the 4th Judicial District, which is Hennepin County, for that number of years. Prior to that, though, when I started out, I was a lawyer in a small private practice law firm with only 6 lawyers, and that was valuable experience for me because we did personal injury when people got injured in car accidents, workers' compensation when people got injured on the job. We represented both the bus companies, and we represented employers and employees. We also did some criminal work, traffic work, so it was a big, and a little bit of family law. Yes. So it was a great variety, and it was a great preparation for me to join the bench.
So you see things from a lot of different perspectives. Now, this program is really about helping people who end up going to court for whatever the reason. We want to kind of get them prepared and help them sort of understand what to expect. So let's just start. Why would someone, anyone, want to go to court?
Well, you mentioned at the outset that people can sometimes be afraid to go to court, and I think it's because they associate going to court with being arrested, having done something wrong. But the court handles, as I said, I'm in the family court, we handle a huge variety of matters that can be it can help people resolve difficulties. So the court resolves legal problems having to do with landlords and tenants. It solves problems having to do with business disputes, also disputes regarding neighbors and boundary lines. You know, just there's an infinite variety of matters that the court can help people resolve.
So it kind of gives you a chance to tell your side of the story,
right,
too, when you're going to court.
And that's why it's important when you have the opportunity to go to court that you actually go and be prepared to tell your side of the story, because the court can only make a decision if it understands all of the facts, and it understands the facts by hearing from the parties.
So you might be required to go to court. How do you find out if you have to go? You're required.
Well, if you have to go to court, you could be subpoenaed, which means you could get a document that's either personally served or given to you, or something that comes in the mail. For instance, we need everyone to be jurors, and we want our jurors to be as diverse as our Minnesota society is. So therefore, if you get a summons or a notice to come to court to be a juror, please come, because we want you to do that. Also, you could come in, obviously, if you are arrested and you have to come into court. But even if you've done something wrong, you might not be in custody. You could receive a notice to come into court in advance. If you get a notice to come to court, you have to pay attention to that and come to court. Because if you don't come, you could get into a lot of trouble and then wind up getting arrested.
I'm sorry. And also I was going to say you could get in trouble and be arrested in a criminal case if you don't come to court when you're supposed to. But also in a civil case, you can, if you don't come to court, if you don't read carefully the papers you get in the mail, it's possible that someone could get a judgment against you without you having done anything.
Yeah, so it's important to go find out what it's all about and then address the matter. I know there's lots of different reasons to go to court, but in this particular program, we're kind of putting the categories or the cases, if you will, into two types of cases. What are the two types? Which we focus on here?
Well, basically, there's criminal, what people see, and civil. And criminal now can include anything like robberies, domestic violence, traffic matters, DWIs, the whole gamut. So as a trial court judge, with both Judge Vasily and I are, we handle everything from your moving violation, challenging your stop, all the way to murder cases. So that's one whole section. And another whole area that we handle are civil cases, which are disputes between people, such as landlord-tenant, or disputes between businesses, or disputes because maybe you've been injured in a car accident or on the job. We don't handle the on-the-job ones, but if you've been injured in a car accident and other cases where you could have been injured, all of those are civil types of cases that could come in.
So even some civil cases may sound a bit like criminal cases. So, for example, if you have a neighbor that is harassing you, and the police don't take any action, you may be able to bring an action and get a harassment restraining order to prevent that from happening.
And that goes through the court system.
Yes.
So that's a good distinction, too. So criminal and civil cases, both reasons to go to court. And the best thing you can do is prepare before you go to court, no matter what reason you're having to go to court, right? Especially if you have a special need. You might have a language barrier. Our program here in ECHO, we provide information in multiple languages because we want people to have access to information in languages they know best. But the court system also addresses language barriers or folks who may be dealing with a disability. Let's talk about some of the resources that may be available to folks who may need extra help when they go to court.
Right. Well, there is a state website, and I think that you have shown the website, or will show it, and people can go online and get that information. It has a wonderful help in terms of not only advice as to how to prepare for a trial, for example, but also there are forms available. So, for example, in family court, where I am now, many people, 60 to 70% of the people do not have lawyers, and they can go to the website and get a form that helps them file a petition for the divorce, and they just fill that out and file it, and then the responding party can also get that kind of help on the website as well, as far as putting in the answer or their response to that petition for divorce.
So many of the courts may have their own website with information. We're giving the mncourts.gov website as one location, and there's also a telephone number that folks can call too.
Right.
And some of them have self-help resource centers there at court. What can I find there?
At the self-help resource centers, first call your court to find out if your court has one. There are some available in some of the counties. And there are attorneys that are there that will provide free assistance to you in helping you prepare your documents. So they may not come with you into court, but they'll assist you to help make sure that you're preparing the right kind of document that you need.
Yeah.
So that is really helpful. The other thing we want to make sure that people know about is that if you need an interpreter or if you don't speak fluently English, that we have interpreters available in the courts. Some of them are full-time employees and work all the time, but in the most frequently used languages. But if not, we have interpreters available who are qualified in hundreds of languages. And so, but you have to let us know in advance so we can make sure that that interpreter's there when you come to court.
Yeah, prepare in advance, and that's not 30 minutes before you're supposed to be there. That's, take some time and be thorough about what you need.
And I'll just point out, too, that in order to access, for example, the website, you may not have a computer, but certainly you can go to your public library. The public library has computers available. I don't know if there are other places.
There.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Or school systems if you have access there, too. How much time should I allow when I go to court? Is this a long wait, or what do you think?
It's usually a long wait. Unfortunately, we have over 1 million cases that come into court in Minnesota every year. And most of them are all at the state or trial court level where Judge Vasily and I are. So you never know. Most often when you come to court, you might have to be there for a while.
So you want to be on time, obviously. Plan to be there for a little while.
And it could
not
be,
only on time.
Yeah, it could be a long time. I mean, it could be several hours.
So don't just allow an hour for time. You may need longer than that.
Well, and you may also need longer than that to permit you the opportunity to meet with a lawyer or an interpreter to help you prepare for that appearance. So it's important sometimes to get there early for that purpose.
Again, plan ahead, make extra time, and don't expect to be in and out. Court takes some time. That makes sense.
And I should also mention, if you have an emergency, again, we stressed how important it is to go to court when you're required to go to court, when you receive something in the mail.
Right.
And if something happens and you can't be there, you need to contact the court and let the court know.
Don't leave a voicemail. Call the court, let them know, and get
Right.
something rescheduled right away.
Don't just not appear.
What should I wear or bring when I go to court? Just quickly, what should I wear or bring?
Well, it's really important that you kind of dress professionally when you come to court. So wear what you would wear to church, or wear what you would wear to work, or something kind of dressy.
Sort of a dress code,
You
right?
shouldn't come in with really tight tank tops. Shouldn't come in wearing your Daisy Dukes, your little, tight little shorts.
No hats.
Yeah, there's no hats that are allowed, and really that's for security reasons. And we understand if it's religious reasons that you wearing a headdress or something. But other than religious reasons, you should not have hats on. You should not bring cell phones into court. You can bring them with you to the courtroom, but if you have them go off when you're in court, you might be in danger of losing those cell phones, at least during the time period that you're in court.
Now, court systems may be, well, they are. They're different in other countries than they are in the United States. But in general, how are they different, basically? I mean, what can we expect here? We know that the court system here wants to hear the opinions of all the people and the parties involved, regardless of the type of case, criminal or civil.
Well, I'm not very familiar with other court systems. What I can say about our court system is that it is a key value of the system that all participants, all people coming to court, are treated equally before the law, that there be no bias,
of race.
Right, that there be no bias for one side or the other. And I will point out that Judge Bransford and I are co-chairs of a committee called the Committee for Equality and Justice. And what the committee's charge is to make sure that we eliminate bias as much as possible.
So we want a
from
fair
all court
process
systems.
for all. That's the ultimate goal. And there have been stories, rumors, and even factual cases. You can't bring cash to pay for the court. You can't bring cash in to create a decision. It really is about a fair process for all. The law is pretty strong in that regard in this country. For
I've
sure.
had people from even other states. I remember a time where they came and approached and said, well, Judge, how much would it take if you ruled a certain way? And I was shocked, and I said, we don't do that in Minnesota. We don't do this in the United States. Maybe that's the case in other countries, but we don't accept any money to help us decide a case.
Some people are, who knows why, but it happens sometimes.
But of course, kind of backing up to how to prepare for court, court does cost money to some degree.
True. Bring some cash.
There are some fees associated with filing documents, and so you need to be sure to bring money with you if you need to file a document, or the court also, if people have insufficient income, there's a process in which the court can waive those fees. They can allow you not to file
Another
the
reason
fees.
to prepare. I'm sure you'll have to verify all of that as well. And cash or credit is obviously taken to take care of your fees.
Right, and it's important to have ID, for example.
So now I'm coming. What should I expect when I go to court? Now I have to be there. What should I expect?
Well, one thing is that you should expect to wait. And you should also expect to be patient, but you should expect to have your side heard. But understand that frequently, because we want to make sure both sides are heard, they can't always be done the same day. So you may have to come back another day for your trial. Let's assume, however, when you come to court, it's your trial. Make sure you come with your documents, with whatever pictures, photos, evidence that you may have to try to convince the court of that your side is true. You should expect to be ready to come into court, to swear to tell the truth, to be able to testify, and also to be able to hear the other side of the story. That's what the judge has to do.
And the judge will ask me questions or not?
Yes, the judge may ask you questions. And one thing that's very important to me as the judge, when I ask questions, is I want people to be very formalistic in their response, in that they can't. It's not a conversation where people can interrupt
Address
one
you as
another.
Judge. Yes, ma'am.
Well, yes,
Yes,
there's
sir.
formal aspects to it. For example, when the judge comes into the courtroom, people
Stand
rise
up.
because it shows respect for the court system. People treat one another with respect. People call the judge Your Honor. And it's not because I'm so elevated. It's because we want to show respect for the court system.
Respect for the system.
Right. But it's important to speak loudly and to take your turn speaking, because a record is made of everything that happens in court. It's not something
People
that...
need to hear you. People need to hear you.
Right.
So it's formal and it's time-consuming, but it's done because it's an important process so that you can be, your comments can be recorded for the record out of respect for each other and everyone involved in the situation at hand. And it's
also,
a fair process.
Yes, so you can be confident it's a fair process. It's recorded, so you know everything that has happened.
What are the most common mistakes people make when going to court? Common mistakes.
The most common mistake I think people make is, first of all, not coming. But second of all, when they come, not coming prepared. Thirdly, don't come with your children because that might be a problematic.
Distraction.
Distractions. I think they just come either expecting that it's going to be all over in 30 minutes, or maybe they expect that it's going to be like the judge shows on TV where we can resolve everything in 30 minutes. It's not.
And it's not going to happen that way. We have just a couple of minutes left. I know there are a lot of different folks in the courtroom at any given time, but more often than not, we can expect to have a judge, right? And a court clerk. And what is the role of a court clerk?
The court clerk helps the judge to schedule cases, also helps the judge identify who's in the courtroom to make sure that we're ready to start. Also, behind the scenes, helps the judge to research legal questions and that kind of thing.
Be organized too. Court reporter?
The court reporter is very necessary. They record everything that's happening in the courtroom. And so that's why it's very important to make sure that people don't speak at the same time, and they will make sure that they're answering using words and not nodding their head so that they can record everything. So it's a very vital part.
Understood, yes.
And sometimes the court reporter is at a remote location, so you won't see the person, but they're there back in another location.
Work is getting done. Now, the attorney plays a role in all of this when you go to court. You can have an attorney, but what is the role?
The attorney's role really is to advocate for the person coming to court. So if it's a criminal case, there could be an attorney that's the prosecutor, and they're advocating for the state. Or sometimes you could say for the victims of the crime. But if you're charged with the crime, you have a right to an attorney, and if you can't afford one, it could be a free public defender. And their job is to advocate for your position and to make sure that the constitutional rights have been upheld, etc. In a civil case, attorneys are authorized or ordered to represent the rights of their clients, both sides, and make sure that both sides are heard.
And that's one point about preparing before you go to court, because a civil attorney, although there's not a right to one, there are many groups that offer free attorneys for people who qualified. So you want to make sure to check that out.
Find out if you qualify,
Yes.
and probably a list for services. Last question, and just a few seconds left, ladies. Do all legal problems have to go to court?
No. We have alternative dispute resolution, it's called. It's a different way of solving problems that can be faster than court and less expensive and much less formal, where the parties sit down with a mediator or arbitrator to help them resolve their issue themselves.
And in some areas, we have that offered in, like, if you have a dispute with your landlord or your tenant, you can go to mediation before you'd have to come to a judge. And so in some cases, it's required. In other cases, it's optional, but you should ask for it because it's less expensive and less formal, and quicker.
When in doubt, check it out and do it in advance. Your Honor, I thank you both for joining us on ECHO. We've talked about a lot of different things here. I'll try to boil it down into 4 key messages for you. First of all, in the United States and here in Minnesota, the law is the same for everyone. Next, courts and judges are neutral. They interpret laws and they must apply them fairly. Number 3, if you are going to court, get prepared. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. And lastly, there are people to help you when you have to go to court. Check websites, ask for help at self-help centers, or find more information on our website. Again, ladies, thank you very much for joining us. Judge, we thank you very much for joining us here on ECHO. And thanks to you for watching. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. For more information about this program, visit our website, echominnesota.org. Until next time, make it a great day.
ECHO TV is a co-production of ECHO Minnesota in collaboration with health, safety, emergency, and civic agencies and partners and Twin Cities Public Television.